Hello, this is Bill Steffen. Thanks so much for joining us today. We have a special guest to talk with today, coming all the way from South Carolina. This is Justin Kollar, who used to be a reporter at Wood TV8. You've probably seen him before, though probably without the facial hair. That's become an in thing right now. We've got a couple people at work that are in that ballpark right now. But thanks so much for coming on board today. Most important question to start out with: what's the weather like in South Carolina?
Bill, it is so humid down here already. It's the end of May, and it's last night when I was coming home from work, it was 95% humidity, about 75 degrees. It's kind of scattered showers today, but it's a nice reprieve. Last week we hit 95 degrees.
Oh, we've had three days above 80, and that's it so far. We've had a lot of days that are in the 60s and low 70s, so it's been a cool month, 2 degrees cooler than average.
I just want to thank you both again for having me on. I'm so excited to do this. Look what I dug up from my desk. I keep this with me all the time. Signed picture. Bill Steffen.
That and a buck will get you a cup of coffee somewhere, right? Yeah. I tell people, there was one day at the Muskegon Airfair where I signed 700 of those.
Oh my gosh.
We had a special deal, and they got me 10,000 of them from China, and I went, 10,000? I mean, I'm popular, but not that popular,
right.
But I sat there and signed autographs, and I went through all 700 of them. I brought 700 along.
Those get me a little less down here in Charleston. Yeah. The word hasn't spread, but that's why we're doing this. We're trying to get the word out there. I've got something else that's really cool. My mom sent me this.
Okay.
This was so cool to me.
Oh, yeah. Look at that.
And I know we're going to talk about this a little bit later on, but that's a special connection that we both have. We're both Eagle Scouts. So I brought some props. You got to bring props.
Yes. What troop again?
Yeah, it was like 2016. I think it was an Order of the Arrow event, maybe at the Masonic Lodge, downtown Grand Rapids.
Downtown, yes. I spoke there twice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't know there was such a great big room in that building. I mean, that's like a gigantic room.
Absolutely.
And they had good food afterwards, too, which Boy Scouts really do. Yeah. Hey, Michelle, should I tell them my Charleston, South Carolina story?
Oh, it's the best story.
Okay, yeah, now
get way to mess with the weatherman. Yes, go ahead.
This is a true story. Okay, we had Hurricane Hugo that came into Charleston in 1989, I think it was. A couple years after that, we had the AMS conference there, the broadcast conference, and so I went down there for that. And we had all the TV meteorologists. I mean, everybody was there. Harry Volkman from Chicago and Tom Skilling and everybody else, and it was a big deal. And a lot of the guys go out to the bars, in the evening and schmooze and whatnot. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that or not. So I found a guy from San Francisco, and we were both. I was on a per diem. I had so much money to spend, and I'm great at getting free meals at conventions. Boy, I can just
handing out autographs.
Yeah, AccuWeather has a table out, and I'm chowing down there. So I'm saving my per diem, and so he says, well, let's just go somewhere and get a really big lobster dinner and just, have a good time and pig out and talk about weather. So he's from San Francisco. I'm from Grand Rapids, and he's got a rental car. So we find out at the desk where there's this little tiny restaurant, but they got the greatest seafood ever. So we drive I think it was about 10, 15 miles north of Charleston. We find this little restaurant, and it's a little dinky thing. It's got like 4 or 5 tables or something like that. And so we're there pigging out and everything. And at the end of the meal, we ask for the check. And the waitress says, your check's already been paid for. And I'm like, what the? And she said, yeah, somebody recognized one of the two of you and decided to pay for your dinner. And I'm kind of like, well, look at that. Isn't that the craziest thing? Now, here we are at this little tiny restaurant. We didn't recognize anybody. And I knew just about everybody that was doing weather. I didn't think it was anybody else from our conference.
Yeah.
But somebody either from West Michigan or from San Francisco decided to surprise us. Isn't that crazy?
There are a lot of Michiganders down here in Charleston. You'll see the license plates continuously. But I never realized this. I feel like growing up in West Michigan, most of us go to Florida. That's where the snowbirds go, to Florida.
Right.
Here in Charleston, it's mostly Ohioans. So I don't know if the highways kind of link up that way or what.
You
easier from Michigan.
Come down I-75 or and you just kind of spin right off and go down there. Yeah. And of course, Myrtle Beach is a big golf center.
Absolutely.
And the glorious thing about that story is they never did find out which one of them was the recognized person, which I just think is a fantastic way to mess with the head of a famous person is to, you'll never know if it was you or it was you.
I did this for 50 years. So, I mean, you're going to have contact with a lot of people. I got recognized once walking down a beach in Venezuela. Can you believe that?
Wow.
I'm in t-shirts and a cutoff. I'm walking down the beach and somebody comes running, "You're Bill Steffen." I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Like, I can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
All right. So here's
let's get into the interview here. We're talking too much about.
Yeah, we're having too much fun already.
Here's what I was able to find out about you. Wood TV alum. And you were there in 2018 to 2021.
Yeah, something like that.
Native of West Michigan, and you're currently an anchor, reporter, and journalist for WCSC in Charleston, South Carolina, which is a beautiful place to be.
It sure is. It's been an absolute dream come true to be here and to have my dream job. I always wanted to be an anchor, but that's one of those things when you're first getting into the business, you can't tell your bosses that that's what you want to do because then they just kind of write you off. But I'd like to say it's been a long time, but I've been in the business for, I think, 9 years in total. So, I mean, Bill, I'm sure you can speak to this too. You do have to cut your teeth a little bit to kind of get what you want to have at the end. And then now every day I wake up and I just think how fortunate I am to have the job that I have. And, I love doing what I do. And I think having that, I mean, like you said, Bill, you've done this for 50 years. It's one of those things where the time really just kind of passes and you're like, I have no complaints. Like, this is what I always wanted to do. This is what I feel like I was made to do. So I feel very fortunate and very lucky to be down here and to be doing what I do. I love it every day.
Well, I learned early on that people that were still doing this when they were 60 were people that stayed in one place and didn't go bouncing all over the country.
I know.
The wife is back trying to sell the house and the hubby's in trying to get settled into, Kansas City or something like that. And I've lived in the same house here for 47 years.
Wow.
We finally paid off the mortgage, we're done. But,
so the 9 years that you said that you were doing this, does that include, because didn't you start writing for your local paper in high school?
Well, actually, no, you're right. I've been doing this much longer than 9 years. I guess just 9 years being on TV. But even then, when I went to the University of Missouri, they're one of the only university that is actually partnered with a network affiliate. So even then, through classes, I had a deadline and we were on NBC every night. That was KOMU 8. So I guess maybe 8 or 9 years that I've been getting paid out of school on TV. Because yes, I also wrote for the paper in my hometown. But Bill, I wanted to touch on what you just said there too, because it's so true. I feel like nowadays people move around so much. I absolutely adored working for Wood TV 8. And growing up, that's what my family watched, even though ZZM was the stronger presence in Muskegon, which is where I'm from. But all my family all watched 8. So when I got to put on the 8, and I still have some of my souvenirs, I got the mug right here. It was almost like, imagine if you were like a Lions fan your whole life, and then you ended up playing for the Lions. That's what it felt like to me.
Wow.
So I still have my jackets and all that because it was such a proud moment and so proud to be able to work for that station. But the business is cutthroat, and sometimes to have the job that you want, you might not end up at the place that you want to be. And I'm not here to throw any shade on Michigan, but I ended up getting to a point after going to school in Missouri where I was like, the cold just isn't doing it for me anymore. Like I think I want a little more heat. So then
you had a snowstorm in January.
Yeah, I know.
But the fact that he remembers it and it was one snowstorm in January tells him that we're on the right track.
I think Charleston, if I remember right, had about 3 or 4 inches, but it didn't have as much snow as Pensacola or New Orleans or Mobile.
And I've got pictures of it on this. We'll get to it.
Okay. Cool.
You do one winter in the South and you don't have the ice and the snow, and never again. It's ruined forever.
Well, we've been here for 2 winters, and this last one we had the snow event. And they say it's a once in every 8-year thing. So I got out of the way. So we're good. Yes, that's the hometown right there.
There you go. Yeah, my sister lives in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and she plays golf in January. If the temperature gets up to 50 degrees, she's out playing golf.
Yeah. The grass really never dies. It just kind of stays green the whole time. Trees don't change their leaves as beautifully as they do back home. But you do still have several species of trees that do shed their leaves. Some don't, some do. It just kind of depends. but you don't get those bright reds and oranges. It's just kind of brown and they fall. Bill, what do you think about that haircut?
But you do have some palm trees there.
Mm-hmm.
I think the consultants would definitely go for that.
Yeah, I think I could do that. I think I could pull that off. No, so this was such a special time in my life. So I ran track for Western Michigan Christian High School, and I'm trying to think. So I don't want to get the saying wrong. There's kind of two births in your life. One day where you're born, and then another day when you find out why. I think I nailed that. And I wasn't born to run track, but sport is so much more than just, kicking a ball or lacing up the shoes. Like, you really find a brotherhood in a community. And this taught me so many leadership skills and just kind of finding out who I was, being a part of this team. We really achieved more than I think a lot of people thought that we would. So in this particular picture, I think we were at the all city meet, and we got third place. But you have to think, Western Michigan Christian, we had a graduating class of like 150 kids, maybe. Very small school. And look who's on number one right there. That's Muskegon. So, that's a powerhouse school for almost like every sport. And to be like right up there with the top dogs, and I would never sell myself short. We were the top dogs. And we did good in state too. But this was my junior year. And I think that was when we kind of realized, hey, we might have some potential to do something big here. And the story with the haircut was my teammates, they had a barbershop that they would go to before big events. And they were like, Jay, that's what they call me, Jay. They're like, Jay, you got to get in here. We got to be a team. We're going to do earth, wind, fire, and ice. Have some elemental stuff going on here. So I think I was fire. I can't tell from the hair. It might have been wind. I don't know. But we all got like matching shaved heads. And you got to talk about, we were very cocky, but it was cool. I'm glad we did it.
And did you know you're not the only famous alum from Western Michigan Christian? Do you know of another one?
I don't.
From my era, Kate Reinders went on to star on Broadway.
No kidding.
She was the original Glinda in Wicked. I'm not sure if that's correct. Yeah, she's very well known in the theater circuit. Went on to a bunch of stuff. Yeah. And then when we were growing up, I knew her from theater.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
I loved my time at WMC. It was a great school.
She actually had a part in While You Were Sleeping with Sandra Bullock.
Really?
Yeah, and went on to all this stuff.
I can't believe I didn't know that. I apologize.
Yeah, well, your school needs to be bragging on your alumni more.
Yeah, we need to brag on them a little bit more, huh? So
and
then
you are more track.
Yeah, a little more track here. It really, at the time, it wasn't ever that I wasn't good at school or academically motivated. That wasn't really the case at all. I just kind of thought there was other things to do. So I didn't really achieve much academically in high school. So being an Eagle Scout, which we'll talk about more, you go into the military a higher rank than if you were just walking off the street. So my full intention was, after placing second in state, I was like, I'm going to go to the military. I'm going to join the Navy. Well, track, like I say, it opened up so many doors for me. Then I started getting calls to run track collegiately. And that picture there on the left of me wearing that ONU, that's Olivet Nazarene University, and I'm not Nazarene. But they offered me an opportunity to run for them. And I thought, hey, library, advancing my education, being on a boat. I took the educational route. Not that that's a wrong choice for anyone to join the armed services. I think it would have been a different path for me. But track and field opened up so many doors for me. So then I was able to run collegiately, get a big portion of my schooling paid for, and just kind of continue to put the pedal to the metal and see what I was capable of. It was a great opportunity.
Where is Olivet Nazarene? What part of the world?
That is in Bourbonnais, Illinois.
Okay.
And the cool thing with this was, I brought up the Lions earlier. Now I'm going to bring up the Bears. At the time, Olivet Nazarene was the training camp of the Chicago Bears.
Wow.
So all of the facilities, the track that I'm standing on, we had an amazing indoor track, the weight room, everything was paid for by the Chicago Bears. And it was like top of the line quality.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Now I think they go up into Wisconsin.
I think they do. I think they probably have their own facility somewhere.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah.
So how old were you that when you realized you were first interested in weather or broadcasting? And was it weather or broadcasting or both?
Well, first for me, it was broadcasting. My mom actually had worked for, and Bill, you might know this. It was a small TV station in Muskegon, and I don't even know what the call letters were now. And I don't think it was like a full service, like how, how Wood TV8 had, like, we're talking like the morning show, the noon, the night, all these different hours in between. I think it was just a once daily evening show, but I could be totally mistaken on that. My mom worked for them. And I remember growing up watching her, and then also she did radio, and thinking that that was something that would be really cool to do. And my mom always said that I'm just a chatterbox, so I could talk the ears off a horse, they'd say. And I was like, if I could get paid to do that, and I think I have a little more of a creative side to me. So, putting together stories and things like that certainly taps into that creative aspect. So I don't know if I could tell you an exact year, but I know I was young because my mom would bring us around different things that she was doing. And I remember being just really enthralled with that whole side of things, and like the pomp and circumstance of all the lights and everything. I thought it was a really interesting way to make a career, make a life for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
This is where we met, Bill. I believe this is.
Oh, no kidding.
This might have been. And I also think that maybe you brought my troop in for a visit at Wood. So we might have met actually there maybe a year or two previous. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this picture was taken in 2016. And I would talk about this just briefly earlier, but this was at the Masonic Temple downtown Grand Rapids. And I've always been a big fan, Bill. But then getting to know you on a more personal level too, like at work and even through events like this, was so cool to me, because I think a lot of times people see the face on TV and they're like, oh, is he really that kind, that genuine? And absolutely, yes, it's all true. And I remember, like, there's like a line to see you here. And I think at this point I kind of knew what I wanted to do, like get in TV, but you just gave everybody so much time and made everyone feel like they were so, like, part of it and seen. And I just want to thank you for that, because I think a lot of times they say you should never meet your heroes, right? That, you might be disappointed or whatever. But I mean, you're one of my heroes, and getting to meet you, and just even at this point, I had no idea I was going to end up working with you. Was such a cool moment for me. And I remember, like, the whole way home, driving back to Muskegon, my mom and dad were like, we got to talk to Bill. Like, we got to talk to Bill. And he's an Eagle Scout. He's, I wasn't an Eagle Scout here yet. But that was another big motivator. After talking with you, I just felt like I could climb the mountaintop.
Well, we're just regular people like anybody else. I like to tell the story. I'm walking down the street, and there's a couple of kids that are about 8, 9, 10 years old that are sitting on the front step. And one of the kids goes, oh, that's Bill Steffen. And the other kid goes, no, he's in Hollywood. No, I'm not in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
I'll live.
I see your Order of the Arrow sash there.
Yes. That's
What
right.
is the Order of the Arrow for those of us that aren't familiar?
So, Billy, I've been away from it for a couple more years, but if I'm not mistaken, so I got that at Camp Gerber, and it's like you have to qualify to be part of this more exclusive group of scouting. And it was like one of those things where it kind of challenged you to be better. And there was different levels to it. I think there's a 3-tiered organization. And if I'm not mistaken, I only got to
Ordeal, Brotherhood, and Vigil. And a lot of people move from Ordeal to Brotherhood, but very few move on to Vigil. I don't think I ever made Vigil, though. I'd have to check and make sure with my. But it's kind of a subset of Eagle life, and I think if you're Star, you have to be at least Star, I think, to get in. Does that sound right?
I think so. I think that's what I am here. That my badge looks yellow on my breast pocket.
So it was interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so your career started when you convinced your local newspaper to let you write for them, and that was in high school?
It was in high school. Yeah, I was. I took some English and writing courses in high school, and my teacher, Mr. Scott, who was awesome, was like, you have a knack for this. You should continue over the summer, because there is, a real drop off when you're doing this every day and then you just stop, for months. So he's like, you should try to continue doing this. Just write about books you read or whatever. And I'm like, well, I want to do this professionally. I want to do this for real. So at the time, I first went to the Muskegon Chronicle, which I don't think exists anymore. And
it's all part of MLive.
Yeah, it's all MLive now. And I went there and they were like, you're in high school. You're going to be a senior in high school. See ya. No. So then I went to the White Lake Beacon, which also, so I'm from Muskegon, but it's really a lot closer to where Michigan's Adventure is. If you know that area, that's where my home is, where I grew up. And they were right on the fringe of the White Lake area. So we would get their paper. And because at the time I went to grade school at St. James Catholic School, which is in Montague. So, we're all in that area. Anyway, I went there and literally, I don't even think, no, I could drive. I could drive. I think it was on like my permit. I had my mom bring me to the White Lake Beacon's office like one day in the summer. And I might have called ahead, I'm not sure, but I walked in. I was like, hey, I have a camera. I'd like to write. Can I work for you? And at the time, I'm not sure if he's still there, but Greg Means, another just absolutely awesome individual who was with the Beacon for a long time, looked at me and he's like, well, let's have a conversation for like a couple minutes and I get a feel for, what you want to do. And we talked for maybe like 20, 30 minutes. And he's like, we've got a bunch of asparagus farmers up in near New Era. Do you have time today? Like, let's see what you got. So I went up there and like turned a story of everything you could do with asparagus. And like, they have like, you can put it on pizza, you can like grind up and put it in sausages. So I like went out and my mom drove me all over the place for this story. I came back, wrote the thing, put it together, and it was in the paper like that weekend.
Wow.
And he was like, yeah, let's do this. So then I got my like little press pass or whatever. And through that experience, through the White Lake Beacon, and now this is several years removed because I'm trying to remember how I got paid. I don't even know if I did, but they didn't have someone to go to one of the first president or the rallies for then candidate Trump up at the Deltaplex, which also I don't think exists anymore. But they were like, here's a press pass. Like, can you go like get a cover story for this like rally? And I was home from college at the time. So I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And got to go like right in the front. Like you're like basically like, right there witnessing that portion of history. And I did that for the paper, which was so cool. Like you just never would expect some of the doors that it opens for you.
Neat.
It's always about the moms.
It's always about the moms, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the grandmas too. They do a lot. This was a proud day right here. So I started school at Olivet Nazarene University running track. I ran there for 2 years. And again, this is just my life experience. This is not to say that it works for everyone or doesn't. I was noticing that people who were graduating from that school with journalism degrees were really struggling finding jobs. And part of that is we did not have a really fully functional studio. They had cameras that they let the students rent and stuff, but you're not able to put together, really high quality reel to show possible recruiters or news directors what you can do. So again, my mom, we started doing some research and she was like, University of Missouri is the #1 journalism school in the country. You should go there. But also we looked at Indiana University, Michigan State, Grand Valley to transfer out of Olivet Nazarene and then go here. So my mom drove me and my sister down like one spring break to see Mizzou, and I fell in love with it. And I was like, this is it. I was like, we toured a couple other schools, but I was like, this is the one I want to go here. So it ended up adding another year. So I went to school for 5 years because Olivet Nazarene is a religious institution and the University of Missouri is obviously public. None of those religious credits transferred. And they weren't paying me to run track there. So that was the real only like hindrance was, how am I going to pay for this? And we're still paying for it, but it got me in the door to a lot of different jobs. And something interesting real quick about this too. So how I mentioned, like I went to the Muskegon Chronicle and they were like, see you later. And then the Beacon wanted me to, give me a shot. Similar thing. So my second year at Olivet Nazarene University, I wanted to intern at Wood because, again, I love Wood TV and I wanted to work there. And I was like, once I just get my foot in the door, like that might just be all it takes, but it'd be a great opportunity to find out either way. So with my resume from ONU, I went to Wood and I never heard back. Like I applied and no one ever got back with me at all. So then my second year at Mizzou, I think this is now maybe 2017. I don't know if it was like the name or what, but at the time, like that front lobby at Wood TVA is like all locked. And I'm like knocking on the door. I'm like, hey, let me in. Like, and they're like, no, you're not here to see anyone. Like, no. So I'm like through the glass. I'm like, I want to work here. I have a resume. Can you give it to the news director? And they're like, put it under the door. So I slid my resume under the door. And then like maybe like a week or two later, I got a call back to like apply or like to be interviewed to be an intern. And funny enough, Dan Bors, who was then the news director, who is still one of my close mentors, he kept that resume because he thought the story was so funny that I like slid it under the door. And again, it's just one of those things. You got to put yourself out there. You just never know what could lead to what.
Yeah, talking with a number of you all, my dad's coworkers that I've met over the years, the common themes are knowing what you wanted to do from a young age, attending college with a purpose, and then setbacks. Every single one of you has stories of things that didn't work out, times they had to try again, challenges, times they took risk. And I hope that, other people, they just see the success, but there's all this behind it of what it really takes for every single one of you to get there.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of luck involved, and there's a lot of prayer and a lot of, sleepless nights. That's for sure. I think in today's day and age, it's so interesting because everyone sees the highlight reel. They see, what you're posting on social media, but they don't see all of the grind that went into that achievement, and like this, just looking at this picture here of me in college, finally graduating, it took me 5 years. And, I mean, you want to talk about when I was running track, I was gifted, it was still a lot of work put in, but that was, something that I was just gifted with. Some of those classes, and like I mentioned too, the University of Missouri, they're partnered with a local TV station. So when you mess up, it's not just on, 5 students' TVs. This is people watching you, in Columbia, Missouri. And we would get calls, we would get emails because it was real life, already in college. And I remember just absolutely just falling flat on my face, doing some stories that I thought were going to be so good and so big, and they were horrible. But just, it's there's an old saying that I really like. It's like, if you're going to fall, because everyone's going to fall, don't fall back, fall forward. It's easier to get up that way, and then you're still continuing forward in with whatever you're chasing, so don't fall back, fall forward. So I can say, like, I got a bunch of scuffs on my face because you just keep falling forward. But eventually you're going to keep getting yourself back up, and you're going to wind up someplace where you want to be.
And did you have a college minor?
I did. Because in college you can pick the classes that you want to take. So a lot of things were so interesting to me, but I love American history. That's probably my passion, and fishing, which we'll talk about. But I chose so many American history elective courses that also filled in that they were like, if you take one more, you can have an American history minor. And I don't know what that will do for me, but it's on my resume, and maybe one day I'll be a college professor or something. Who knows?
Well, there's a lot of American history in Charleston.
Oh, there is. There's so much. It is so rich down here. I mean, we're like miles from where the Civil War started at Fort Sumter, and this whole area. I mean, one of the 13 original colonies. You can really not like walk anywhere without being near some kind of historical event, which is so cool.
What classes did you find helpful for your career, and what was a waste of time?
Well, I hate to say that anything, because I am a Christian, so I hate to say anything religious was a waste of time. But in the grand scheme of things, my religious studies courses at my first university maybe didn't end up serving me professionally. Personally, I did learn a lot, and about other world religions as well, because I think having that is a better understanding, especially in our job, we have to be unbiased. So you're dealing with people from a whole bunch of different perspectives, and just kind of knowing maybe what someone believes can fuel what they think today. So having those understandings, maybe not a waste of time. Maybe I should have phrased that differently, but I think something that served me, incredibly was all of my writing courses and my my journalism practicum courses at the University of Missouri. It's a different school. It's kind of like the Order of the Arrow in scouting. You could go to the University of Missouri, but you have to get into the School of Journalism. So once you get in, those courses are really like next level. Right. That's when you're, in front of a camera, like for real. And you're actually like, I remember this was through school. The governor was being, I'm trying to think if he was indicted. I don't want to say this incorrectly, but in any case, he resigned for this huge scandal. And here we are, students in college, broadcasting this live from this like press conference where the governor is stepping down for these huge like scandal allegations and things.
Wow.
And that, you want to talk about, I think having that opportunity and actually being like, we're interviewing the governor from this press conference, and now we're live on camera telling everyone at home what just happened as like 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds, and then you put that on a resume reel. And I was getting calls from Wood TV8. I had already been an intern there, but I was technically hired before I even graduated. I knew where I was going to go.
And that's rare. You're in good company. Ginger Z, she was a direct hire out of school, Laura Velasquez, and they went on to do amazing things. So very rare for Wood to hire that way. And they hired you, and look where you are now.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I wouldn't be half of who I am or anything like this if it weren't for all the people that poured into my life. Every day, like you said, moms do so much. I was blessed with, an amazing father too, grandparents that were there from the jump. Like you just say when, and they're going to be there. And, it's so important too, to find mentors, because as much as your parents or your family may love you and be able to pour into you and tell you that, you can do whatever you want to do. I think it's so interesting. So many people aren't given that belief system at an early age. And my parents both, they were like, whatever you want to do, like if you put your mind to it, you can achieve that. You can do that if you work, and we'll be right there. But then also taking that belief and meeting people who've actually done it. So like me with Bill, at an early age, seeing someone who was, a local person who is now doing this, it just kind of like something switches in your mind, where you're like, if he could do that, I can do this too. Like it is possible. And I love to tell people that it is possible. If you have the gumption, you can do it.
And then you mentioned some of your Nazarene classes not always translating. I remember at Hillsdale them telling me that I needed Latin and Greek literature. And I mentioned to one of my gymnastics coaches that I was taking Greek literature, and he kind of looked at me and said, well, what are you going to do with that? But I had all these people telling me, and I have never used Greek literature in my life. The best things I learned at Hillsdale were Spanish, my physical education classes that have helped me stay healthy as a 40-something-year-old. It wasn't Greek literature at all. So sometimes what they're telling you and what you experience, they don't end up being the things that you end up using the most. And that's just something you learn as you go.
I would have said Spanish, because I took Spanish for 4 years in college, and I really can't speak it, but I can read it. And just yesterday, we had a story that I ran here that I would say over half of it is in Spanish. And I had to subtitle the whole thing. And, just from ear, there are different resources you can use to help kind of translate things like that. But that was, that was huge too.
I work at an airport. So the Spanish, I mostly know the Spanish words, like las salidas de embarque están arriba. The departure gates are upstairs. So you learn the phrases that you know, but of all the things I took in college, I would say that was the most helpful. And it wasn't what they told me I needed. They told me it was Latin and Greek, but it just ends up being what path you end up on.
Isn't that funny?
So the tangible steps you talked about in high school, you got right into it and you got started writing and doing what you needed to do. And then the internships that you did and you were able to get in with Wood early. Are there other things that you did to move from this is what I want to do to now here, this is what I'm doing now? Are there other things that you would go back and tell yourself were the right or the wrong track?
I would say maybe luck isn't the right word, but I feel like I've been kind of guided which is great because sometimes you can be misled. But one thing I always thought was such an important thing was relationships and continuing them. And no person is, is too small. No job is too small for that matter. Like everyone deserves the time and everyone, deserves your best. So I remember when I got the internship at Wood being a little disappointed at first because we were basically little grunts in Miranda's army. And Miranda is just an amazing woman. She's incredible. But yeah, Bill knows.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've been a grunt too.
Yeah.
Park parties.
Like foot soldiers at these park parties. And
yeah. Everybody had to put up chairs and whatnot. And I was out there with everybody else.
Yeah.
So what'd you do? What did the soldiers do? They set up the chairs?
Leadership right there. That's what that is.
Parking cars.
Yeah. We had to, and some of those days in Michigan in the summer, maybe not as hot as down here in Charleston, but it gets pretty steamy. We would be out there like putting up the stage. And then they found out that I could drive like a bigger truck. So they were like, we need you to load this thing up off the loading dock at Wood, bring it to whatever park we were going to be at that week. Because I think there were 2 every week, if I'm not mistaken. It was a lot.
It was every Thursday.
Yeah. Okay. So it was 1 every week. And it was like, we had to drive this out there. Then you got to unload it, put the stage together, rig the thing, put out the seats, bounce house, all this, talk to the vendors, make sure everything is getting set up. And I'm like, I am an unpaid, like 18-year-old intern. You're giving me all this responsibility, but that is the key right there, right? You make yourself invaluable. And I remember like how proud I was the day that I realized that Miranda knew my name. And I was like, oh man, I'm not just like grunt number 2. I'm grunt Justin. But I think that, yeah, I mean, it was ridiculous. But I think it really, it wasn't like we were doing anything on air or anything like that. But I think that, and I have no way of knowing this to be true, I think that Miranda would probably have conversations with the news director and people and say like, hey, these are good people. They're interested in, staying with the business or maybe keep an eye on this person or something like that. So it's a great opportunity. And then eventually, because the internship was I think it was 3 days a week. And again, this is getting fuzzy because this is like 2017. But there would be like 2 days a week where I'd be actually out shadowing reporters. And then the other 2 days of the week, I was out doing the grunt work. So I think internship, hugely important, even though if it's not paid, like you need to get your foot in the door and experience like what that life is actually like. Because I think, Bill, this is probably what people say to you all the time. Like, is it really so glamorous and like all this? It is not. Like, no one's doing your makeup. No one is doing your hair. I don't get my suits or anything paid for, and they don't do the dry cleaning either.
They don't do that now. They used to.
Yeah.
Clothing allowances kind of peaked in about the early 90s or thereabouts. And then we had to trade out with Rogers Department Store.
With all the long ties?
I would get a few free suits every year. It was really kind of a neat perk.
Yeah.
Do you remember Rogers Department Store or are you too young?
I do actually.
Yeah. I loved Rogers Department Store Day. There would be a day that he would go and spend his allowance and it would be a couple $1,000s and we would all go. And then they would just kind of disappear. And it was the one day a year that I was just allowed to run wild. I was allowed to run around a department store and no one was going to yell at me because he was there spending somebody else's money. And it was the one day I was just allowed to be a wild kid. And I'm sure I didn't do anything. I just chased my sisters around the displays. But I remember it being so much fun.
Yeah. Isn't that funny?
I don't know if it was you or one of the girls just went up and down the escalator for 20 minutes. They just thought that was so cool. Okay, whatever. It's free.
Yeah. So that last picture, if we can go back just a second, again, this was, I was an intern because you can see the patch on my jacket there was KOMU 8 from Mizzou. And I actually might have been not even an intern. I might have been visiting from school because this was in the winter. You can see all the giant storm covering the UP.
Look at the wind. Jeez,
yeah.
Windy day.
But I was like, oh, I'm here. And I think again, I'm kind of fuzzy. I might have been like just hired at this point because I think I could get in the building. And stopping in to check on Bill, see what's going on. We took a picture together, which was cool because I think this was maybe the first picture we had taken since the the one in the Boy Scout uniform. So I was like, oh, that's so cool to see. Like, you know, that was my dream. And now I'm here in the same building. Like, actually, I'm getting closer, you know?
You still have that tie.
Yeah. That's a good looking one. I might be wearing those same pants today. I'm not sure.
And this is when you made it to the anchor desk.
I made it. So I think I was with Wood for maybe 4 years, maybe 3. And I was hired, like I mentioned, out of school, but it was like I had a very short leash at first. I was hired to be on the assignment desk, and once a week, I could present something from the little newsroom camera once a week. And I was like, well, you know what? I had other offers out of school, but I know this is where I want to be. And I know that if I keep working hard, this will only be temporary. This will just be a minor thing. And sure enough, it was. I think I did that for like 6 months. And that also taught me like so many things, like just how the business works, right?
And for people in the industry, what is the assignment desk?
The assignment desk, yes, I should clarify this. The assignment desk is the most thankless job in news, but it is probably the most crucial. Anyone that's calling from outside saying there's a fire on I-96 or, you know, whatever, where does that go? The assignment desk. The assignment desk is also exactly what it sounds like. You are assigning reporters stories. Now, in my market here and in Indianapolis as well, there was an assignment desk, but we didn't get our stories assigned to us. We had to pitch them every day. But the assignment desk, like if something falls through, you have like the backup. You are like the human Rolodex for the building. You know, every, you know, police.
The police scanners too.
Phone number. The scanners are there. And something else we had to do too, which I thought was so interesting. I sometimes still have nightmares of this. We had like 5 TVs, right? And we had to watch WWMT, ZZM, WXMI, and our own, and write down what everyone was doing in their A blocks, which is like the first, the first bit of the show before the first commercial, to see if we had missed anything or to see if we were like, you know, killing them on like a breaking news story, which is often the case at 8. But it was like that. It's an important thing to do too, because like maybe there's something huge going on that we just happen to miss because maybe proximity, maybe it's happening in Kalamazoo, right? They're on it. Then I know, and then I can get someone over to it. So that was, I did that for a while. Then I was promoted to a morning reporter, and then from morning to days, and then I think from days I went back to mornings because I liked it so much.
What time did you wake up when you were on mornings?
2:30.
Ugh.
And I have to go to bed at like 7. But it's a different vibe, you know. It has its perks, you know. Then you get off and you have the day is yours until you have to go to bed so early. But I remember being so proud because my whole family, the same crew that was, you know, rooting for me and egging me on my whole life, could watch, you know, me on TV every day.
Were you commuting from Muskegon?
No, I actually lived, I moved to, at the time I was living in Kentwood. And then, Bill, do you know Dale Fish?
Yes.
Great guy.
Yeah.
He is just such an amazing guy. He was like, you know, how much are you spending to live in Kentwood? And I think at the time it was like $1,000 a month, which now seems like not bad for rent.
Right.
He was like, I'll charge you $300. He's like, just hear me out. You can live in my basement. And I'm like, what? It's all sealed. He has locks and everything. It's like its separate apartment. It had its own kitchen, sink, the whole thing. And he's like, we can go fishing together. I've got an old car. We can go get ice cream. He's like, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, his wife had fairly recently passed at the time. And, you know, it's hard to live alone. And I was living alone, and I was like, we can be like best friends. So we were like, it was so cool. So I lived with him in his basement, and we'd be like going to work, be like, hey, roommate, what's going on, man? Such a unique situation, though. Like, it's very hard. Like, and then I started dating my wife when I was living in Dale's basement. And she's like, where do you live? And I'm like, I could really freak her out by saying I live in the basement of an old man, you know?
Or you could have said the basement of a fish.
Yeah, right. That's also true. But he's just an incredible guy, too.
A similar story to that. Laura Velasquez was about 5 years younger than me, and I was a young attorney living in Holland, and she was just starting off at Wood, and I let her live in my basement for $150 a month.
Yeah.
It was basically charity.
Yeah,
because,
I know.
I knew what she was making. That was the only way she wasn't going to be living in her parents' house.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny too. That's another thing. People think, all the bright lights and the amazing set and the glamour that you're probably making, millions of dollars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not at all.
Don't make that much, in the grand scheme of things.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then in her industry, she had all the bright clothes. She had the yellow suits and the orange and the red ones. And I was an attorney, so I had the funeral collection.
Yeah.
So we were able to trade clothes, and that was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I started at $175 a week, working 6 days a week.
Wow.
I did math on that, and that was more like $50,000 a year in today's dollars.
Yeah,
so don't
right.
feel too sorry for him.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
It
Would have been about that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This
So
was
there you
No
are.
Shave November with the morning crew right here.
I see Matt Kirkwood. Is that Casey?
Casey Jones.
Casey Jones and Tom Hillen right there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom and I we grew to be very close because I needed to learn so much. I mean, I learned from everybody, right? But Tom's the traffic guru of Grand Rapids. And I started filling in for him because I had expressed, I might like to try that sometime. So whenever he would be sick, I would fill in. Well, as the crazy, strands of life intertwine, right? When I was after like 2 years after Wood, I lived in Indianapolis doing TV there. And they promoted me to do morning traffic. I already had a reel from traffic because Tom had let me fill in for him.
And you knew how to drive a truck?
I knew how to drive a truck.
Was that like a special certification you had, or were you just familiar with it?
Yeah, well, we grew up like kind of like farm country a little bit. So I didn't have like a certification, but I knew, how to do it. And it's so funny too, because my sister actually drives commercially for it's Midwest Dairy something. They're based out of Coopersville, but she actually has all the certifications and stuff to drive. I didn't, but I just knew what to do. So they're like, I just get
that was good enough to be on this crew.
Yep.
All right, we've got a video clip. Let's get that going, and we'll be right back.
We're looking for temperatures to be in the upper 30s tomorrow, mid-30s during the day on Monday as we pick up a little bit of light rain and snow. I think Tuesday is probably the best bet for seeing several hours of sunshine in an otherwise fairly cloudy pattern here. Wednesday, the warmest day of the week at 46. We'll be seeing some pretty chilly air move in for Thursday and Friday. Santa Claus will feel right at home.
Bill, now I know you used to ice skate, and a lot of people might not know this, but you and I are both Eagle Scouts. I have to know, did you ever get your snow sports merit badge?
No, I didn't do that. I don't know if they had that back when I was there. The first merit badge I got was coin collecting because my babysitter was the daughter of the president of the bank. And she would bring in bags of pennies, and we kind of sort through them here, and that's how I got my first merit badge.
Hey, the more you know. Thanks, Bill. Always a pleasure.
There you are.
There it is. See, I love, like, a lot of times they write in the scripts for, like, the weather toss, something so generic. But I love kind of catching people off, ask them an actual question, right? People want to know more about yourself and, what you do and everything. And I always like that with Bill. I feel like we could kind of go off the cuff a little bit, which was fun. The producers in our ears would be like, rap, rap, rap.
I got weather merit badge. That was the third merit badge I got. I got the hiking in there. I got coin collecting and then hiking and then weather.
Very cool. My first one, my dad, actually, I should have said this. My dad worked for Roadway. So back to trucking. He didn't drive though. He was the terminal manager to tell people where to go and all that. So he had someone bring in one of the big trucks. And I think that was my first merit badge, was the trucking merit badge.
Wow.
Yeah.
So other things that are different than you thought it would be, you said you were surprised at how not glamorous it is and how there's pretty much no one to help you.
No, there isn't. If you're having a bad day, if you're struggling out there, you better figure it out, or you're going to be, floated or ending up in the news director's office. Something else that's so true too. Leon Hendricks, I'm sure you know him, Bill.
Sure.
He would always tell me the most important thing is truth above all else. It would be so easy to, mess something up. either willfully or on accident. You know, on live television, anything is possible. You know, you're just saying something. And always having that in the back of your mind that, is this true? Is this fair? Is this right? And then going from there. You know, if you're on live television and, you know, there's something going on, or you just interject something, like there's no, like there's might be like a 3-second delay, but that's not enough time to catch someone that's going rogue, you know? So that was something that I didn't realize also, that like once you're on it, you can say whatever you want. You know, you might not be doing this for very long, but you have to, you know, always be judicious of, you know, what you're saying and how you present yourself. And it's so important that, you know, it's a positive image and that it is equitable and fair for everyone. Like you want to do that. And it's kind of the golden rule, right? Just treat others how you'd want to be treated. And I think if you live with that, then it is a great job to have, because you really do represent a lot of people in the community.
Do you have any crazy outtake stories yet?
Oh, yeah,
like really crazy things that have happened?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind when I was in college still, and again, I mentioned we're like on TV in college, the softball team at Mizzou was really good. And I think they were in like the SEC tournament or something. And the game ended on a crazy like home run that the Mizzou catcher, like in the outfield, almost got it, but it slipped through the glove and it went out, right? So I'm like doing way too much, which I have been prone to do. I'm like, I'm going to try to recreate this scene, right, on TV. I fell. Like I flipped over the wall and fell backwards. It was so bad. And so that's one. Another one too, we were interviewing the governor. Again, this was also in college, so you kind of get the bad stuff out of the way early, right? At the time, we didn't have wireless mics. Everything was like clipped and hooked. So he's giving this like very, you know, bad press conference for himself. He's about to resign, and he's all clipped up to our camera, right? I have like a 9-foot cable out to him, right? The second he's done, he wants to get out of there. Runs off with the thing still attached. Just
oh no!
Down.
Ooh.
Oh no! Was it okay?
It was okay, thank goodness. Yeah, but we were still on live, so I had to bring it back up,
no.
and I had to get in front of it, you know. So it was very dramatic. But that was another one. Just that's like a technological thing. You can't really avoid something like that from happening. Probably should have set the thing on the podium instead, but you live and learn. This was a really cool opportunity right here. So from Wood, I got a job at Fox 59 and CBS 4. It's a duopoly station in Indianapolis, and it's still Nexstar though. So Michigan, this was their first time back in the Big Ten championship, which is always held at Lucas Oil Stadium right downtown Indianapolis. And they had called my news director, and they're like, hey, do you think Justin could sign on for Wood again and cover this game so we don't have to send someone down there? And for some reason, I think Jack Doles might have been in the Olympics or something. I don't know. But for whatever it worked out, they were like, yeah, he can do that. He's with Nexstar still. So I kept one of my mic flags from Wood. So I slid it on like my other mic, and I was working for Wood again for a night.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool.
With a mustache.
With a mustache, I know.
And there's a story behind why that happened. You had to get special mustache permission.
I had to get special mustache privileges. I was about to get married here, and at Wood, they were clean shaven. You have to be clean shaven unless you're Bill, or unless it's the month of November, because they would do the no shave November deal, right? But in Indy, same thing. They were like clean shaven always, right? So my wife likes a mustache. She grew up watching Bill too. So she was like, I would love if you could grow a mustache for our wedding, because those pictures are forever, you know? And I was like, okay, well, let me see. You know, so I talked to my news director, and he's like, you can grow it for a month. And then the minute you get back from your honeymoon, it's gone, right? This just so happened to be like the week before. So I kind of got like my revenge on Wood, because I was on Wood again with a mustache, and they were like, no, like get rid of it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, as if that makes a difference.
I know. And here it is again. This was just last week. I thought I would just try. Here, though, at Live 5, they want me to have a beard like this, kind of like just a little bit heavier than 5 o'clock shadow. This is what they like.
Yeah, those are in right now.
Yeah, beards are in.
Hey, take a look at how many guys in commercials have beards.
Yeah.
I mean, not the big ZZ Top guy, you know, or anything like that, but just a nice trimmed beard.
Yeah.
So have the standards relaxed at all from the clean shaven kind of everyone's got to look like a Disney employee? Or are they still kind of pretty?
Kind of case by case, I think. Because when I'm clean shaven, they said I look like I'm 12 years old. And especially having the job that I do, where I'm like the evening anchor here, they want you to look a little more like grizzled, I guess, and like put together, a little more established. So I was like, I just want to test my luck and see. So last week I got my hair cut and it was like so much shorter on the sides than what my beard was. So I'm like, I'm just going to take it down. I'm going to bring the mustache back. I had this for a day, got called in and they're like, get rid of it. I like it. Bill, I know you do too. That's your thing.
Sure.
Okay, as someone who I work for the airline and safety stuff, I have to take a learning hub every single day about something to do with safety. And I saw you standing on this car.
Yeah. So this is what I would call desperation and kind of like a MacGyver moment, right? You can't see it, but right off the back there is Air Force One. This is when Biden came to West Michigan to tour the Pfizer plant in, I think it's in Battle Creek. But this is the Kalamazoo Airport. And again, COVID was going on. So we couldn't get our typical access being like right next to the plane. And the snow is so high that if I were on the ground, there was a snowbank covering the plane. So I'm like, you make do with what you have. There's a saying that I have on my desk that I just absolutely love. It's how's it go? It's do what you can with what you have where you are and do it better every day. This is what I had. I was like, I can get a better view if I get on top of the car, and it's slippery too. You know, you can imagine. But you would never know on TV that I was standing on top of a car.
Yeah.
And you could see Air Force One, which was great.
If someone at my work suggested I stand on a slippery car in the middle of the winter, I'd be writing into a hotline. Yeah. But I'm glad it worked out for you.
Well, they didn't suggest it. And I don't think anyone knew it until after. They were just like, how come you have a better live shot than everyone else who was there? Because now right in front of this would be like ZZM is there, WWMT is there, Fox 17 is there, but no one else was standing on the roof of a car. So.
All right.
Glad you're okay.
I'm okay. Okay.
So now you're at WCSC in Charleston. I
am. Yep. Live 5. Kind of like Wood. This is the legacy station down here. No longer with Nexstar though. This is Gray TV. But it's CBS. So the call letters, or not the call letters, but the affiliate really kind of doesn't matter. It's the ownership group that kind of depends on a lot of things. But yeah, I had never been to South Carolina before this job opened up. But the funny thing is, so I went to school at Western Michigan Christian, right? The gal that I walked with in graduation, her name is Cassidy Cracker. She's a dentist. Her practice is here in Charleston.
Wow.
Wow.
That's just such a
small world.
So we've reconnected. She's about to get married. And my wife and I are in their wedding. So we've become we've kind of rekindled that friendship from high school. And that's kind of like what I mentioned earlier. Relationships are so important, aren't they? You just never know. You want to be on good terms with everyone you meet because you just don't know. She was in a couple of my classes in high school. We were friendly and pals. And now we're really close friends, you know? So, yeah.
And what are your best new finds? Have you found a restaurant that you like, new places that you're going to church?
So we go to church at, it's called Seacoast. And it's, so I grew up Catholic. I practice non-denominational Christian now. And they're one of those, I don't like the word, but it's a mega church where they have several different branches, across the area. But we go to the Mount Pleasant one, which you can't see on this map, but it's basically Charleston, and that's where they actually do it live. So you're not just watching the screen. So we do that, and we love it. It's a great community there. Something that I continue to do here that I started doing when I was working in Indianapolis is volunteering for the Children's Hospital, which I do every Monday, which is such a cool opportunity. And, you have those moments where the kids or their parents might recognize you or something, but I'm just another kid adult playing with them and trying to brighten their day while they're having a tough stay in the hospital. So that's really a huge blessing to me. And I hope it is also for the kids and the families that we work with. But I love to fish. And I know we're going to get to that, but fishing down here is just an absolute treat. Last weekend, it was like 85 degrees. We're in the ocean and I'm catching flounder hand over fist, you know?
Do they have the master angler thing? Like
With
we have
me?
in Michigan? Like,
No,
is there a
they
master
don't.
angler program? Aw.
No, and I wish they did. I actually was just talking about one of my friends about this yesterday. And Michigan, to my knowledge, is really the only state that has that kind of like program in that database that's so extensive. It's so cool. For people who don't know, Michelle, maybe you can explain, because I understand you're a master angler too.
A giant fluke one time. So
Yeah.
if you catch a fish that's long enough or weighs enough, you can have it officially evaluated. You've got to go to a third party to make the record, and then you can be a part of the database. And I got a patch for mine.
Yeah.
They'll send you something that says, congratulations, you're a master angler. You're like, all right, woo-hoo.
And the patches are so like, they're like these ones. They're like beautifully
they're cool.
embroidered. Like,
Mhm.
it's so cool. They don't do that here. But there is like, I think there's what they do have here is it's called like catch of a lifetime. So it's obviously a lot harder to get that. But like, I think if it is like the top 3, like if you break a record for any species, they'll send you like an actual plaque, if I'm not mistaken. And then they do like, I think it's like, I could be mistaken. I think they have like a YouTube page where they like interview the people who get like the catch of a lifetime. So it's definitely something to strive for. I would love to do that. Yeah, this is my current co-anchor. This is Michael Higdon and I. This was during Hurricane Debbie. Or it might have been Helene. I think it was actually Helene that came through our area. So this was, you know, the promotional team is always so like top notch, and they do those like proof of performance. So while there's a huge event going on, they're kind of buzzing around, getting all videos and different angles and stuff. And then they make a commercial about how we did, you know,
That says first alert a bunch of times.
First alert. Yeah. First alert everywhere. But yeah, that was a crazy experience. And Bill, I know you brought up Hugo earlier.
Right.
They still talk. Everything is judged based off of Hugo, you know, how severe a storm is. And it's funny. There is, we don't have a weather ball down here. And I know that's 13's thing, but we do have a cow that's on a big podium in the middle of town. And it's for an old dairy that no longer exists. It's called the Coburg cow. And for every holiday, they will dress up this cow, right? And it has a big, beautiful neon sign. Anyway, if the local lore is if that cow is still there, you don't need to worry. It's not going to be that big of a storm. If that cow vanishes, you better head for the hills because there's a big storm coming.
Coburg cow. I think this needs to be on my sightseeing list.
Yes, the Coburg cow.
Coburg
it's awesome.
Cow. Great.
Charleston had a gust to 108 miles an hour in Hugo, and there was somebody somewhere that on the top of a mast of a ship had a gust to 167 miles an hour.
Wow.
So this was a major system, and it took a while to clean up. I happened to be walking around town, and I happened to run into the past mayor of Charleston. And I was talking to him about the storm and what they went through. This was a couple, 3 years later. And he said, I'm still sweeping up garbage from that storm.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's amazing. They still talk about it. Now, this picture, this was such a novelty to me. I was laughing so hard. So I mentioned we get snow down here in Charleston about once every 8 years. That's what they say. And that was this year. We got like several inches of snow, maybe like 3, but it did freeze too. And it was cold for about a week. So they bought this ice sculpture, the Live 5 ice sculpture. And every show, we would have to have someone do a live shot in front of the ice sculpture to make it worth the expense, right?
Yeah.
So we have like, I made little snowmen right there. You can see like on the side of the little thermometer. And that thing stayed for about like a week. But the thing that was so different about it to me was, you know, being from West Michigan, we get snow like 5 months out of the year, you know, like honestly, here it's such a rarity that, you know, obviously there's no snow plows, there's no salt trucks, there is none of that. So when you get a snow event like this, I'm not kidding you, you don't leave. Like
everything shuts down.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm getting chills just thinking about it because it was so magical. It was like the Charlie Brown Christmas. Everyone's like coming out of their homes and like everyone was so filled with wonder. And like people are running around and like no one has sleds either. So they're like ripping up cardboard and attaching rope to it. And like it was just like everyone was in such a good mood. and everyone, like, no one has coats. Like, Michael had worked somewhere cold, and obviously I have my coats from West Michigan. So, like, no one has coats. So everyone's like layered up, like looking like little Stay Puft Marshmallow Men from like all their jackets and stuff. And it was like, it's probably dangerous actually, but they're like people getting pulled on like little makeshift sleds down the street everywhere, and no businesses are open, like not even McDonald's, like nothing is open. So it was just like 3 days of just like bliss. Like we had to work obviously, but like everyone was so happy. And I was like, this is actually like, I don't like the cold anymore, but like up north, you know, like we kind of get numb to it. Like it's like
you just go around it.
Another day of snow and blistering cold, you know? Whereas here, it was such a novelty that everyone was just loving it. And it was like such a change because you would see like palm trees covered with snow, you know? I got to throw out the first pitch at the, we have a minor league baseball team down here. And that was a cool experience because they announce your name on the loudspeaker and the whole thing. It's just kind of like you said, Michelle, in one of those other prompts, like kind of really feel like you're living the dream at this point, you know. But what you can't see, I messed up so bad on this first pitch. So I'll see if I can show you. So, you know, if you ever seen baseball with a pitcher, you lift the leg closest to the plate and then you follow through, right? I was so nervous. I lifted my other leg and I was like kind of like tripped over myself. And the ballpark announcer was like, great guy, so funny. He's like, whoa, what's going on? Like, and it was not intentional. I was sweating so much. It was like 100 degrees, like middle of the summer. But the picture makes it look like I did a great job. So we'll just kind of leave it at that.
I did that once and I went and practiced.
Did you really?
I got some baseballs and I practiced and I threw a pretty good pitch. I was about 6 inches inside, but right between the knees and the waist. So it was a pretty good pitch.
So this is flying into Charleston last year, and a storm came up as we were landing, so we had to circle for about 45 minutes. It was just beautiful.
Yeah.
Just beautiful to look over. And that's a rainbow that I took from the airplane.
Wow.
Oh, no kidding.
You never really, I mean, I hadn't traveled like that extensively, like to this part of the country before. And I guess I didn't ever realize like how much of like a marshland and like delta it is. Like when you're up that high, it's just like the rivers just are, you know, it is so beautiful.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful place. And like you said, everyone from Michigan goes to Florida, and Florida's awesome. And there are so many other places, and Tennessee's another good one too.
Amazing. Yeah. We kind of get in these little ruts of going to the same place where it's comfortable, right?
So other influences or experiences that you haven't touched on yet that you think helped make you successful?
I think one thing that I would tell anyone is, you know, there's a time and place for like being very serious and taking yourself seriously. But one thing I've kind of like prided myself on is maybe the opposite, never taking myself too seriously to where I'm not like Bill, you mentioned this. We are people just like everyone else, you know, and I try to kind of show that lighter side of things where appropriate. You know, you're not going to do that in a breaking news scene or anything like that, but we have personality, and that's not something to be ashamed of, you know, to kind of interject a little bit more of who you are. I think if anything, people really like that. I've mentioned a couple of times down here that I am from Michigan, and I whip out the hand and I'm like, I'm from right here. It's backwards now. This is this way. And you'd be amazed what people will like latch onto. I think I've only said that maybe like 5 or 6 times in the year and a half I've been here. And if I get stopped, very often it'll be someone from like, where are you from in Michigan? Oh, I'm from St. Joe, or like whatever, you know? So I think having a little bit of personality is a good thing. You know, you do need to be serious and professional at a lot of times, but I think kind of finding your own voice is so important because otherwise I think it will, like, they tell you how to have your hair. They tell you how to dress. They tell me how to have my beard, you know, and you can kind of feel like you're getting put in a little box, you know, you got to find those ways to kind of show your personality and then just let it shine, you know, like we're all so unique. And I think that's once you find someone who kind of believes in you and then you believe in yourself, it just kind of continues to spread. So it's good. You gotta kind of find your own path, right?
So who else have you looked up to in terms of like local personalities or national journalists For me, it was always Barbara Walters. That was, I just thought she was the coolest woman ever. That was what I wanted to be. Who was that for you?
Well, I mentioned Bill earlier because I kind of thought that maybe I would do weather, and I knowing that we were both Eagle Scouts and that was something that I was working towards, that was a huge, motivator to me to be like, I mentioned this, like he did it. I know I can do this if I keep going and keep working hard. So that big idol right here, which is just crazy to be, in the same chat box talking with you, Bill. But also I was always really inspired by Leon Hendricks, who I brought up earlier too. He didn't even graduate college. So there's so many ways to do this. And if you have the right tenacity, it's like, I always say, like, I want someone to tell me that I can't do it, because then I'm going to do it even more, and, if there's a barrier to that success or what you view as success or whatever, it's really up to us to kind of continue to persevere and to push through that, because especially in this field, people are going to call and people are going to text and people are going to tweet and say how much they don't like you and how bad of a job you did. Right. But in Bill, I know you know this. So you have to have a strong enough sense of self and armor to know that you're doing the right thing. You're not going to make everyone happy, because how can we, And I think that Leon was one of the first people that told me that. I think the way that he put it in the most uniquely Leon way possible was, he was like, if you don't have haters, you're doing something wrong. So you have to have, like, sometimes those like negative influences to make you feel like you're doing the right thing. And I've never really been inspired by like negativity. I try to stay positive as possible. But just knowing that some days people are not going to like the story that you're telling. And that's okay, because we're not in the business of, PR. We're in the business of telling the truth. So.
And for some people, you're not a meteorologist, you're a mediocreologist. But that's okay. Just keep watching.
Or you're just a weatherman, right? And then they take the science right out of it. This is my
and
wife.
Here's your beautiful wife.
Yes, my beautiful wife, Nicole, but she goes by Nikki. And we love it down here in Charleston. And we actually.
So did you know her from Michigan?
I did, actually, yeah. So the funniest thing, this is a great story. I was working at Wood at the time, and I was on an online dating thing because it was in the middle of the pandemic, and you can't go out and do anything. So I was on Hinge, which was great. And we met and we started chatting and everything. And she's like, I actually have a really funny story for you. She's like, I'm 20 or whatever. She was like, I don't really watch TV. But I told my grandparents, like, I was seeing this guy. His name is Justin Kollar. And they were like, wait, what? The guy from Wood TV 8? So she was like, my family and everyone like already knows who you are. And like, so it was actually really funny because like she never viewed me as like a TV, personality, right? I'm just another guy. But her family was like, especially her grandparents were like, oh, so funny.
That's cute.
They're like, what is Terry DeBoer like? What is Bill like? What is, all these people like? And I'm like, they're just like us, Grandma. Like, they're just like normal people. But it was so funny, like having that experience, from family. So you can't see it because she's kissing me, but I have the mustache.
The mustache and the cowboy boots.
Yes.
Was that a Nikki request as well?
That was also a Nikki request, but also, so like, Nikki was not a bridezilla in any sense of the term. We were very much like collaborative on like what we wanted to do. But she wanted to have a very small venue. So it was very intimate. It was like 34 people.
Where was it?
She wanted to have a destination wedding. She wanted to get married out west. So we were at Joshua Tree, where this wedding was. And that's kind of like the whole Western feel. So I have a bolo tie. I think you can kind of see there in the picture. And the cowboy boots. And it's actually funny, though. It all ties in together. My name is Justin. My mom used to ride Western and English. And my name is from the brand of cowboy boots, Justin Boots. So growing up, I was always wearing boots and stuff. And sometimes I still break them out on TV. But usually they're tucked in, not like
That's
this.
a fantastic little subtle reference. Well done.
Yep.
So what year was this?
This was, oh boy, I'm going to get in trouble. Dang it. This was, I know it was 2022.
Okay. Not that long ago.
No, not that long ago. 3 years happily married. This was so this was part of the crew here. And you can see the cactus and everything. It was a beautiful little venue there. Yeah, I didn't know how emotional I was going to be. I cried like a baby when seeing her walk down the aisle, and I wouldn't trade it. I'm glad that I was filled with that much emotion. Just thinking about it now gets me a little teary eyed, but it was such
Did anything go terribly wrong?
No, everything was great. Everything was fantastic. Yeah.
We had a lot of wind on the day of my wedding.
Did you?
I remember that.
So I was 29 and we weren't going to do that much about it. And my mom said, "What are you doing for your hair?" And I said, "Oh, well, my college friend's going to curl it." And my college friend had curled my hair in college 50 times. So I figured she was the most qualified one. My mom said, "Oh, you can't do it like that. Let me make you an appointment." So she made an appointment and paid a lot for someone to do my hair. Walked out the door, 40-mile-an-hour wind. So my friend,
Bill, why didn't you fix it?
I remember that. I'm just in retail. I don't manufacture.
So my friend, who had curled my hair 50 times, got out the curling iron and off we went, and everything was fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Another
there you can see the mustache a little bit better there.
And the tie.
Yep, and the bolo tie. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Joshua Tree, what state is that?
That's California, very far south.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's a national park, and it is so cool. It just looks like you're on the planet Mars, like big rock formations and the crazy looking like trees that just look like they're from like George Lucas, like Star Wars, you know. If you've never been, that's another one to add to your travel list. It's very cool out there.
So what airport would that be?
Well, see, now I don't know for sure. We flew into LA and rented a car because or did we?
So probably could be a bunch of them.
Yeah, there's a bunch, but we kind of hit up some other national parks on our way down. We just kind of took like our time. But the interesting thing was we wanted to like actually be legally married from the state of California. So we had to go there like a day early to get our paperwork from the county building in, I don't even know. I think it was like Riverview or whatever county it was. But we were actually legally married in California. Because sometimes people get married beforehand and then like do the thing, you know, but we got married that day.
Neat.
Very cool.
This was just a couple of years ago. And
this is the Bridge Walk.
The Bridge Walk. I had never done it before. And that was a big bucket list item for me. I was like, I really want to do the Bridge Walk. So Nikki's family goes up to Crayon Hill, which if you're familiar, I think it's up near like
it's the camp, right?
Yeah. It's a camp. Yeah. But there's a big stone house there that they rent every year. And I was like, well, we're already up from Indianapolis at the time. I was like, let's go all the way. So we went all the way up and did this one morning, and it was so cool. Such a great like, community event where like everyone, it's one of those things. Everyone is so happy, and because it's so unique. You only can do that once a year. So it's a cool opportunity. And we got the shirts to match.
It's quite a walk too.
Oh yeah. More than I expected.
Nice day.
And where's this one?
This is we have a little pop-up trailer, and I think we have a picture of that coming up here. This was on top of a ski resort, the lift here. This is Grand Teton. And you can go up to this thing. The town is, what is the town? I can't remember now. But you go up there, and at the top of this lift, they have one little shack that all they do is sell waffles. And they're all like little specialty waffles, and you can eat them up here while you have this amazing view. But it's like half the year it's a ski resort, and the other half they, do this for tourists and sell waffles up there and stuff. It was so cool.
Yeah.
Now this is here in Charleston. This is why I say like it was so novelty, right? This is the Pineapple Fountain, which is like a huge landmark of the area. And we got that snow, and the whole town was closed down and everything. But we went out and saw the fountain. You can see it's got icicles there on the bottom, which is not common.
Yeah. Is that a public landmark or is that a business?
It's a public landmark. Yeah. It's a park there right on it's called the Battery, which again, so kind of with your mind's eye, look like this is like right at the edge of the big harbor. It's called the Battery because there's still a bunch of them there. but it was all like an actual battery during the Civil War time that the Confederacy had to shoot at the Union-held Fort Sumter.
Mm-hmm.
So that wall is still there. Some of the cannons are still there too, but now it's a beautiful public park that you can walk up and down that wall, and it's just gorgeous. So I think I might have mentioned my wife and I love to scuba dive. This was on one of our recent dives. I believe we're in Honduras here on that picture on the left, getting ready to go in.
You've got the mustache. So is this honeymoon?
Well, it looks like I have the mustache, but it's just thicker than the rest of the beard because the chin has some of the shading too. Yeah. And what we like to do is we try to every year go on a cruise. This year we're not. But we're going to Bonaire, which is an island off like Aruba in Venezuela area, to just dive for a week for my 30th birthday, which I'm so excited about. But this was on one of our cruises that we did fairly recently. And we try to be unplugged from our phones when we're on a big trip, because otherwise you're just constantly getting inundated with all these alerts and everything. And it's hard to be in the moment, right? So we bring along disposable cameras, just like the old days. And all of our best trips, you'll kind of notice how they all kind of look like they have that kind of like fog to the pictures. They're all those disposable cameras.
Mm-hmm. Oh, very good. Very cool.
Yeah. It's so nostalgic too, because this is how we were raised, with those cameras. So this is obviously not a disposable camera. I have a little GoPro that I take on these dives. And this is Bonaire, where we're going back to. And those sea turtles, I think this might be a Kemp's Ridley or a green. But they, to them, you're just another fish because they have no reason to be afraid of you, and you're just right up there with them. And that's a queen angel fish, just absolutely like so gorgeous. So you would never believe like those colors can be that vibrant until you're like actually seeing them. And it's such cool.
How do you pick your destinations? Do you just research? Do you get advice?
Well, yeah, we get advice. Thankfully, my wife's family, my in-laws are big time divers. And this is another thing. I'm so happy to have gone through Boy Scouting. It opens up your world so much. Like you're trying all these new things with the merit badge program. I don't think I did like a diving one, but it was like fishology or something like that, oceanology, to like kind of have a better understanding of the ocean. And I knew like from an early age that was something I was so fascinated with. And I had like all of these books of fish in the ocean and all of this. And I always wanted to do it, but I just never had the opportunity because no one in my family dove. But when I married into her family, they're like, you got to get scuba certified so we can all do this together and something we can kind of, bond through. And I was like, say less. That's exactly what I want to do. So they have gone on many, many dives. And then they'll kind of tell us like, oh, you would love like this one, or the Honduras dive. That is the second largest reef structure outside of the Great Barrier Reef that's so famous in Australia.
Wow.
And that's a lot closer to get to than going all the way down under.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Here's our pop-up. I said I grew up in the country and I used to sell eggs. We had chickens and I would ride my bike up and down the road, and I saw this trailer that just sat in someone's yard forever. And once I saved up enough money, I asked the lady that I sold eggs to, I was like, would you ever consider selling that? Like how much would you sell that for? She was like, I'll go dig up the title right now. I'll sell it to you for $300.
Wow.
And I was like, let me go get my egg money. So I got my money and came back and bought it right there.
Good for you.
And now I'm telling you, it needed a lot of work. They said they had nicknamed it Fort Apache, but not for any Native American references because it had so many patches. Like it was filled with holes. But my wife and I are pretty handy. And through the course of like the last 3 or 4 years, we have fixed it up to where it's like a really nice thing. And we pulled it all over the country. So this was in front of Devil's Tower, Wyoming, on a trip we took out west, which is so cool. So much fun to do.
E.T.
Yep.
All right. So many good suggestions for my travel list, which is never ending. And there it is.
There it is. All popped up. No more patches.
Neat.
Yeah, we got it fixed. That was a precarious spot. That was, I think that was Teddy Roosevelt State Park, if I'm not mistaken, up in Wyoming as well. Or it might have been North or South Dakota, excuse me. And you can see the slope to that hill. This thing is only on 2 wheels and a couple jacks. It almost rolled down that hill when I was like getting it off the hitch. So we had to be very careful. And we bought those little wheel chocks after this trip to be able to, get it to stay secured. Oh, this is the newest addition to our family. This is Fozzie. He's an Irish Terrier, and he is just he's so fun. My family and me in particular, I'm a huge Cleveland Browns fan, and they kind of don't have a mascot, but they're called the Dog Pound. So they have this really cool program for anyone who's watching who's a Browns fan. I would highly suggest you can sign up to be an honorary Dog Pound member if you have a dog, and they'll send you a little gift and all this. But then they liked him so much, they made him the dog of the month, and they put him all over social media. And I'm telling you, for weeks, they were sending him stuff in the mail almost every other day, a little helmet. This dog here, he got a collar, he got a leash, he got a bowl, he got all this stuff from the team, and a lot of it was signed too, which was really fun.
So how are you a Browns fan? Because I haven't heard an Ohio connection yet.
I know there really isn't, except a lot of my family is from Strongsville and Berea area of Ohio. So we would go over there in the summers to visit my aunt and uncle and my cousins, and they would take us to the training camp. So growing up, honestly, West Michigan's kind of weird because you're kind of equidistant between the Bears and the Lions. Then you randomly have some Packers fans because they were so good for so many years. But I'm there's really you don't have to be a Lions fan if you're from Michigan because there's so many Bears fans and Packers fans too. So growing up and being around my family who was from Ohio, I was always a Browns fan, which at the time was no better than being a Lions fan because they were both so bad for so many years. But
that's true.
Yeah, you really do have your choice in West Michigan for your loyalties, and that's for all the sports.
Yeah. And that's one of the helmets that they sent him.
Aww.
Oh, that's fantastic. Was he happy about it?
He was only a couple months old, and we had some treats that were dangling in front right here. And we kind of stuffed his little head in there, and he wasn't that bad. I had to be taking a bunch of pictures quickly because then he would shake it off, But yeah, that's the $1 million shot right there.
Very cute.
Neat.
Oh, and man, this one.
Master Angler, where is this?
This was, I'm not supposed to say, but I will say, this is the Croton Hardy Dam. And
okay, sure.
One of my favorite places to fish. And you can see it's early fall there in the background. And this is one of those big salmon runs. The salmon come up, and it's right at the edge of the dam, so they can't go any farther. And so you're drifting beads, And this one, oh my goodness, this one took me on a ride. It took me about an hour and a half to finally get him.
It's amazing.
That was a master angler for sure.
How long have you been fishing? Just forever? Grew up with it?
I grew up with it. Yeah. Yep. This is the biggest walleye I ever caught, and same spot, Croton Hardy Dam. But the funny thing was the walleye season didn't open for I think it was a week early. So I had to let it go. But obviously sometimes when I catch a big enough fish like that, I'm very sentimental, and I'm I'm gonna let you go anyway because this fish was probably 20 years old to get that big. But it was funny because I was fishing next to this older gentleman, and once I finally caught this fish, he was so mad, and I was like, "Why are you so mad?" And he's like, "I've been fishing here for 15 years. I've never caught a walleye that big." He's like, "You will never catch a walleye that big again in your life." And I was like, oh boy, I should really savor this moment then. That was another master angler right there. That's a freshwater drum. And I was actually fishing with one of the old creatives from Wood TV8, Brandon Ozariak, and he's a big time fisher. And we were fishing off, I think this is South Haven's Pier. And that thing, bigger than this. In that also, they dive. They just keep going down. That took me about 30 minutes solid to get him landed too. And then this is here now in Charleston, one of my favorite fishing spots here on Breach Inlet. That's a what is that? That's a spotted sea trout. And they're really good eating. Yeah.
Neat.
This is probably my favorite fish I've ever caught. This was on our out west trip in Yellowstone. there's only specific few areas where you're allowed to fish in that river because it's so highly protected. And this is an actual like subspecies of the cutthroat trout. It's a Yellowstone cutthroat trout. It's very like specific to this region. And they're so protected. You can see kind of on the top of its dorsal fin there, that yellow stripe. Tag, this fish is marked. So you have to let it go. And you have to report like where you caught it, its size if you can, and all this. But it's so interesting. When you fish there, you are only allowed to use barbless hooks. So it's much harder to actually catch something, because if they flip, it's going to slide right out. It's sharp, but it doesn't have the barb to hook them on, right? So I got up at like 3 o'clock in the morning to go wade out in this river. And as the mist, because it's really, geothermal there, this mist is rising up across the river. And as the mist starts to go down, there's a bear across the other side of the river.
Ooh.
And I thankfully had like my bear spray, but the river is so loud and there's so much, water getting rushed, I'm like, this bear spray is not going to do anything. It's going to just get blown away, So I was like flailing my arms and trying to make a big commotion so the bear at least knew I was there. Because a lot of times the biggest risk is when they don't realize you're there and then you startle, So I was like trying to like make some sound and all this. And eventually I'm over there like, doing all this. And the bear like looks at me like I'm the biggest idiot that it ever saw. And it just saunters back up on the hill. But the crazy thing is, and I don't want to spend too much time talking about this, but I'm landing this fish, right? And it's just fighting like crazy. And you really got to keep the line tight, because if it gets any slack, it could slide right out of that barbless hook. Getting it up. And as I'm pulling it up, I whipped out my camera to try to take a picture. And I got it on shore here. But after, like, as I'm doing it, because I was like, I don't know if I'm actually going to get this fish. I took a picture and I dropped the camera in the water. And I'm like, it's gone. It's gone for sure. I'm not going to find it. All that part of the trip is gone. I found the camera. Like, it was like, it started to like float away. And I like ran back in after I got the fish on land, grabbed the camera, took another picture, this picture. And then like, thankfully we had like rice, and I like put the camera, and it wasn't in the water very long. Miraculously, all the pictures survived. Because this would be the only picture I have of this fish, the only proof that I ever caught it.
It's amazing. Wow. All right, and there's my master angler.
Look at that.
Both in Betsy Bay.
Wow.
And that was expensive.
I want to.
And I didn't have a cooler, so I went off, and I didn't want to spend $30 on a plastic cooler, so I got a flimsy little styrofoam thing, and it flopped all the way back to the house. And we made it. And after this picture, I went to set it back down in the cooler, and then the cooler broke open. So I'm glad that didn't happen in the car.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Okay, so something I saw in your bio is that one of your favorite books is The Oregon Trail. Did you ever play the 80s video game?
I didn't play the 80s game, but they remade it in the 90s. And I played that like it was my job.
Was it different? Was it in color?
It was in color. And it actually had like dialogue. So there was like a story that like, as you would get to certain parts of the trail, people would talk to you, and like you were like living their Oregon Trail story. It was so cool. So like what my wife and I did that trip out west, we started in like where Liberty, Missouri would be, and followed the trail out west. And there are still several parts of it where you can see the actual wagon ruts, because you're talking about like, I mean, hundreds of thousands of these wagons taking the same path in some cases. And I was nerding out so much.
I didn't know there was a 90s version. It's hard to improve on perfection.
I know, right?
Was it still like, you shot 874 pounds of meat, but you can only carry 100 back to the wagon?
Or it'd be like, Michelle died of diphtheria, or whatever,
And somehow, so we had computer class. I'm assuming you guys still had computer class in school growing up. Right. And it seemed like the biggest waste of time that we were playing this game over and over again in Carmen, San Diego, but our whole generation grew up computer literate. Yeah. Something about it all worked.
It did. Yeah. Because you have to like do the different like keystrokes and stuff too. So yeah, absolutely.
So what next? What else is on your bucket list?
We just got our passports. So when we take a cruise, you don't need a passport, but for some of these other trips you do. So we're going to Bonaire for a week for my birthday, and we need a passport for that. So now that we have this passport, we're able to travel abroad. And I would love to take a trip to Europe and see like some of the like motherland, you know, because let me think. I'm a third or second generation American. My great grandparents all were the ones that moved here from different countries, you know, and I just think it'd be so fascinating to see, you know, some of the places where, you know, we hailed from or whatever. Like my last name comes from Slovakia.
And you have a relative that has a statue there?
I guess I do. My grandparents were always talking about it, and I'm like, then why did they leave? You know, if they're that big of a deal, why didn't they stay? It's so funny. But I would love to travel abroad. And I think it's really inspiring too, Bill, just kind of touching back. You travel a lot.
All 50 states and a number of different countries. I haven't been to Bonaire, but I've been to Aruba before.
Yeah, it's right there. It's really one of those islands that's it's really built for divers. Like that's kind of like what the whole economy like lives on. And it's in just a perfect location where it's kind of always like 75 degrees year round. But if you don't dive, it's probably not the best place. Aruba is probably a little bit nicer for that, like just the resort living and stuff.
Well, for Europe, I recommend the off season.
Which is when?
Late October.
Okay.
You're not going to be into the bad weather yet, but there's smaller crowds. Things are less expensive. Your flight's going to be a lot more comfortable.
Yeah. We need to get over there. We're really looking forward to that. And something that I want to do so badly, I want to go to Peru and hike Machu Picchu and see that. I just think that I love history. And I just think that civilization is so just amazing. So that's something I've wanted to do. And especially while we are still, you know, able-bodied, you know, to do something like that, because it's very strenuous. But I would love to do that someday.
Yeah, that's some good advice that I would say too, is don't wait until it's hard to walk through the airport or hard to carry your luggage or all those things. There's something to be said for traveling now.
Yeah. But it's like this thing, I think it's like a triangle where they're like, throughout your whole life, you only get two ends of the triangle: time, money, and health. So like, you know, when you might not have the money, you've got the time and the health. But then when you have the money and the health, you don't have the time, or like, you know, whatever it is. So you got to find those.
Think about that too. I would not want to go back to being 19 or 20 if I couldn't also take the wisdom that I have now.
Absolutely.
If I have wisdom, I mean, whatever. But without
imagine taking the wisdom you have now and going back to that age.
Yeah.
Play
the Oregon Trail.
Right. Yeah. Go back on the Oregon Trail.
Yes, exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, you guys.
Yeah, Justin, thank you so much. Where can people find you on social media?
Yes, I am on everything. I have my professional Facebook page is where I probably interact with people the most, and that's just my name, Justin Kollar. Would love to interact with more people from back home. I have a little bit of a following from when I was at Wood TV8, but yeah, I'd love to have people just reach out there. I'm also on Twitter, and I'm on TikTok too, and Instagram too. And it's all just my name, Justin Kollar. But there's two Justin Kollars. One is from Hawaii, and then there's me. So look for the one that's slightly less tan. I'm working on that down here in Charleston, but yeah.
We will find the links and put them in the show comments.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. And Michelle, thank you for reaching out and helping set this up. It's been such a pleasure. And I really want to thank you guys for the opportunity and the honor to be with you guys too. Bill, thank you so much also. You know, I'm sure you get this all the time from people who have like just had different interactions with you and stuff. But I think, you know, one of my biggest takeaways from this is just having those people that you can look up to and kind of, you know, it's so true. People didn't run 5-minute miles until Roger Bannister did it. And once he did it, everyone was able to do it, right? Not everyone, but you know, it was found to be possible to do this. They thought it was impossible for the human body to run a mile in 5 minutes. And being from West Michigan, seeing someone here like have the job and have that like career that I wanted to like model myself after. I mean, you really can't say thank you enough. That really changed my life. Being able to work with you and to pick your brain at different times and just kind of see the life that you lived. I mean, it's servant leadership, Bill, and I really do appreciate everything that you've done for our community.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your kind words.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome.
Guys.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Goodbye.
See y'all later on. Have a good one.
Yep. Have a good day, everybody.